introduce yourself to everybody the way you would if nobody knows who we are.
I am Bill M. Tracer, and I live in Cordova, Tennessee, which is basically a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. And I am both a freelance artist and a writer. I've got 4 books published over at Amazon, as well as some short stories, so it's just 4 short ebook things. So I do both fiction and nonfiction. 2 of my books are fiction, and 2 of them are nonfiction. As you know, we've talked about before, the first book I got published was about the question of will the Internet achieve sentience. And now the most recent book is the more spiritual-oriented book, The Opened Walk, Blending Science with Our Spiritual Quests. And as far as the Mandela effect goes, I've been studying that one for a while myself. That's an interesting concept. There's a variety of theories about just what it is and what's going on with it. But the main point is that it was back in 2002, I believe, when some folks were at a Comic-Con.
Dragon Con in Atlanta, right?
Okay.
And the Shadow. The guy's name was the Shadow. But go ahead with your version.
Anyway, one of those conventions like that, and they were just having a discussion, and somebody brought up something about Nelson Mandela, and we thought that some of them had different memories about him. You know, they had 2 different distinct memories. Some of the group seemed to remember that he had died in prison, while the others remember, of course, that he got out of prison and ultimately became the president there in South Africa, which is the historical memory that most of us have. So, in any event, there are these 2 different memories, different ideas. They started making other comparisons and started finding other discrepancies. And so there's these different theories about what's going on. Why is it that some people remember some things one way and some remember it another way? And among the theories is that timelines have become mixed up, maybe perhaps due to experiments that are going on with the particle accelerators like CERN, or that maybe time travelers have been traveling so much and going to different periods in history, and that they've somehow mucked up history so that some people remember history one way and other people remember it another way. And so like there's a variety of theories. One of them is there's a glitch in the Matrix, that all of our reality is actually like the Matrix, a simulation, and at some point people started remembering certain things so different ways, and so they were trying to fix this, and in doing so, then they made modifications, whoever they are, to the simulation. But in some people, the changes took hold, while others still cling to the previous iteration, I guess you might say. So there's a variety of theories about what is causing this thing they call the Mandela effect. And right now we're not really sure what, if any, of those theories, are it.
Well, we're going to take the UFO Association at its word with some of the old guys, and Dr. Bruce Maccabee with us, and I guess Richard Dolan's doing a book with him now, I think, and I don't know for sure. I'll have to ask Richard or Dr. Maccabee first-hand information. So let's get that straight on the Mandela effect, folks, because we're going to run into it every time you talk to a person with a different opinion, a different filter, a different place and time, and what they heard and how they heard it. And they're not going to remember their sources. Like you cite a source, and be sure and list your bibliography in the back of a book. But the reason I wanted Bill to come on tonight was to, again, remember Ken and us get this platform for tonight, because this is going to be Ken and myself. But I want him to come on for a minute, because he's also has been very appropriate to be our Authors Club organization, our ACO or Authors Book Club, whatever we're going to call it in the future, because all that I've done past has been for historical purposes under different hats. And I've brought them all together under UFO Secret Space on a Facebook group. And I've got all kind of groups out there, and I want to bring them all together. And Bill's has been invited to help me from 2016 forward, as is Marta Thomas with the Pyramid Con, and Daryl Sims with Alien Hunters. And so we're going to break all this up. And then Ken, I've asked Kim to come on and help me with keeping it, get the facts stupid, but keep the facts real with the NASA group and all the people that he and I represent that have faith that when we came out after public relations and retired, and we would try to do our best to remember the best we could, depending on what disclosure really is. And Ken was there in what a lot of people in their mind believe started exopolitics and started disclosure. But I was on a phone call. In my mind, I am as close to being a historian with Richard Dolan with the real facts this can be, because I was involved in my lifetime with men that had I've been in several black op or black men in black or men in suits or all of the above, and we'll get into that over my lifetime because I've not been willing to deal with it, but now that I'm retired, I'm willing to deal with most of it, but it depends on what year it was. But when people wanted to tell, we talked conversely about this that we're doing right now. When would we really bring disclosure forward, and by whom? And Dr. Stephen Greer at the time was working, I believe, in a hospital in North or South Carolina. But he, some people, there's a long history behind everything that people know now in this. I don't know if you want to call it the fake news, because how much is real and how much is fake. So that's why I asked Ken to come in, because, and why I asked Bill here tonight, because Bill has written on both sides of the fence, fiction and nonfiction, and has been represented and remembers back to Star Trek, and Janet does. So we were starting to get it all confused, and I think it's time to clear it up and get those that really remember 3D and how they remember it, and then also the stories of being all planet versus folk life and legend and myth. And then Stan Lee was helping with that, and knowing who the real superheroes was and those that could do ESP and Project Stargate and remote viewing and all of that. So the three of us can at least, I know, talk on a 3D level, and then we can talk extraterrestrial or all that we think about extraterrestrials, if that's okay. But Ken, do you remember being on the show in the past? Or maybe Bill. Bill, did you have a chance to look up the dates? I could go back and see, but do you remember what year?
I don't think I've been. You're talking about your program, or which program? That years ago, because
you're on my program.
Wow. Again, I now know that there have been periods where I've had experiences where I think my memory has been wiped, and that's becoming a rather interesting experience when you talk to Bishago and well, there were several others that have passed away since then. That we may have been involved in a whole lot more, and once we were starting to discover it, some of them it was too late. No, I don't recall that right now.
I don't recall when it was, but I do remember that Ken was on one of your shows. I believe I actually helped you as a co-host on that show. But
and I was on the show? I was on the show as well?
It was years ago.
There goes the Mandela effect, right?
I know it was sometime after 2013, because I started working with TJ in January of 2013, and it would have been sometime between then and 2016 when we kind of dropped off. So somewhere in that interval between 13 and 16, there was a night when TJ interviewed you, but I don't remember when it was exactly.
Okay. part of you faded out, and I lost part of that, but well, that's good. I'm glad somebody remembers where I was, because there are times when I'm going back now, thanks to Dr. Sasha Lesson and the hypnotic regression stuff, and going back and find out exactly where I might have been and what was going on. So, yep, will depend on whether that was really me there or not. It might not have been me. We'll see.
Well, Ken, your voice is recorded, and I know it's in the archives with Mike Ringley in Kentucky, where I used to live. And I was living in Kentucky when you came on with me. And not only that, I did Revolution Radio for years as Cosmos Connection, TJ Morris. Then you also came on with me on this very station where Stanton Friedman came on and Richard Dolan, TJ Morris ET Radio. And back in the beginning, I had a MUFON commercial I did from the Captain McDonald with Mutual UFO Network when they had just moved the headquarters to the line between Kentucky and Ohio. I think they were right at Cincinnati. And I was working on a new manual, and he was, and I had it pieced apart and what was going to be written by whom. And Kathleen Martin was going to help do some for the experiencers when we were going to bring in. But see, I never worked with the directors, and consequently, with me working for the government, and it was already said that the government was infiltrated, and then we had the STAR team coming up to be, I think they were going to be investigators, and it was a big reforming almost and rewriting the manual back, and that was about 2007, 2008, and then I don't know when Jan Harzan took over from Mutual UFO Network. I never met Jan Harzan or talked to him because I had an incident with the black men in black and the black helicopters, and they used to scare me away. And so that was what, at that time, Robert Bigelow was very interested in taking some of our files with Mutual UFO Network, and then it was getting legal because all of us that had given our reports, it was like back in the day, you expected it to be the nonprofit, and it was going to people, Mutually UFO, and we had hoped it was going to be handled one way. So there was a splitting of the sheet, so to speak, with those in a lot, and we lost a lot of members back then. But then we started deciding to have a better website and all of that. And another friend of mine, James Carrion, was before McDonald, I believe, James Carrion. Anyway, we got history even in MUFON, folks. And I'm sure that we should. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, right now, I've been listening to you talk about that. I would love to be able to listen to a recording of that and see what memories it jogs, because that's one of the things of this regression, finding out that where I really wound up. And then when I was put back into the timeline, so to speak, a lot of the memories and things that happened before I went where I went. And I think that being able to listen to the recording of it just might trigger the hidden part where my brain or my mind had been wiped clean of some of these events. So I'm going to get kind of excited about the chance to do some research with you and find out just exactly where I was at those certain periods of time. So
okay, well, we can go back. No. Actually, you've been in a car accident, and I'm sure everybody's got reasons that make you wonder if you bumped your head. I've got a grandson that was going to be looked at and senior, and he's had 2 concussions, and he's decided to go and be a Marine like you. And I'm like, you think you got your head hit playing football? Let me tell you, but can't tell him anything. He's got to live his own life. But he's going to be a Marine, like my brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, people have asked me if I really knew what took place when it. But what this gal was texting on her telephone, and we had to stop at a T intersection. My wife was driving, and she rear-ended us at about 30, 35 miles an hour. And the MRI showed there was a little bit of leakage in part of my brain area. And so I've been getting talks and events and things, and whenever all of a sudden I'll have a freeze up, but I can ask them,